Hello and welcome to episode 32 of the Knitting Pickle podcast. My name is Laura Penrose and I am here with the last podcast of the year. I'm going to try my hardest not to say Christmas or Vlogmas like a million times. Vlogmas, Christmas, Vlogmas, Christmas, Vlogmas. But I can't make any promises. We are in my bedroom today. I had been filming in the back of my house, kind of like my original podcasting spot, but honestly just felt a bit cold. I mean, physically and kind of atmospherically. And I feel so much more comfortable in here. It feels a little bit more intimate. It feels a bit more personal. And we have some things we are displaying upon the bed at the moment, which we'll get into in a minute. I'm feeling festive. Last year, the last podcast before Vlogmas, I tried to get a little bit festive, so we've brought back the red lipstick. I'm feeling I'm looking quite festive, but not in an overly Christmassy way. I feel regal. I feel like Catherine of Aragon, Spanish queen chic at Christmas. It's a vibe. And before anybody comments, I am aware that this is a skincare headband. It's designed so that when you're washing your face, it catches the water because it's made of like a towel and protects your hair from getting wet. But it's one of the few headbands that doesn't trigger me because it's really soft and squishy and doesn't set me off. So I'm aware, but I love it and I don't care. So we're going for festive vibes today, though I am keeping it real with my joggers. I was wearing jeans, but it was incredibly uncomfortable. So yeah, we're here with a pre-Christmas, slightly festive podcast for you. I'm trying really hard not to say Christmas. It's so hard. Anyway, I've got quite a few finished objects for you. I've got an exciting announcement. We've got a pattern release. We've got some brand new projects that you've never seen on YouTube, and yeah, some exciting plans. I am also, by the end of today, going to be whip free, technically, which is terrifying, and I need your help because I don't know what to cast on next. But we'll get into that later. So let's start off with what I'm wearing and my first finished object, and something that you have not seen here on YouTube, though I have kind of talked about the concept of this garment. I'm just gonna ping my hair back a little bit. So you might be able to recognise this pattern. It's a very, very popular pattern, and the bin man has just arrived. Okay, I got completely distracted and it's been about 15 minutes. So I think we're about to start talking about what I am wearing. So you may recognise this pattern. This is the Sunday cardigan by PetiteKnit. However, it is heavily modified. I was in need of a plain black cardigan to wear with a dress for a wedding that I'm going to this weekend. I've been banging on about it. I'm sure if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know. My dear friend Lizzie from Hive Knits is getting married, and she invited me and a few other knitty friends to come to her wedding, and we've made a whole weekend of it, and we're staying in an Airbnb, and I'm so excited. Oh my goodness. And I chose a black dress, as it is a winter wedding, and I wanted a cardigan to go with it. Now, I ummed and ahed for ages about what pattern I was going to do, whether I was going to make one up myself, and in the end I realised that I just didn't have the desire to design a cardigan myself, so didn't. And I had a look through my yarn stash and through my pattern library, because if I could, I wanted to not have to buy any yarn for it or buy a pattern or anything like that, and just kind of go for it. And in my pattern library on Ravelry, I found the Sunday cardigan by PetiteKnit, and it was the perfect gauge. It was the perfect kind of vibe, well, almost perfect vibe. We'll go into the modifications I made in a minute, but it was just the right kind of thing. Now, I do need to address something about this pattern before we go any further. This pattern is not what I would consider size inclusive, which is a real shame, because it's such a beautiful pattern. And if I didn't already own this pattern, I bought it years ago before I fully understood about size inclusivity, I wouldn't buy it now. I decided to continue with this pattern, one because I already owned it and I didn't want to go spending any money I didn't have to, but also because I feel that PetiteKnit as a design house is doing everything that they can to become more size inclusive. That includes their newer patterns have a much bigger size range now. They are going back and adding new sizes to their old patterns, but the library is huge. There are hundreds of PetiteKnit patterns, so it's going to take time to get through them all. And also PetiteKnit, I've noticed on her Instagram, is sharing a lot more diversity in the bodies that she shares now, which is probably one of the main things, because people are getting much better with their size inclusivity, but you're still not seeing enough of it, I feel like, on social media. So yeah, it's great that a person in a larger body can knit the patterns, but if they can't see what it looks like on a body that looks like theirs, then it's going to be a lot harder for them to imagine it. And so I was comfortable making this pattern because of what PetiteKnit's doing for size inclusivity. However, I wouldn't buy it now. I feel that the best way that we can show designers that we want size inclusivity is with our money. I think a lot of the time people forget that knitwear designers are business owners. They're not, I mean, there are a lot of designers who do it like for a hobby, for fun. It's not about the money, but most of them, especially ones that are doing it, you know, successfully with lots of patterns, are doing it because it makes money. It's not a favour to the knitting community, it's a job. And they're going to make decisions based on the financial results of a pattern. That's just how business works. So if I, as a straight size person, can show that I want size inclusivity, I'm going to do that by buying patterns that are size inclusive and not buying patterns that aren't, because the designers are going to see, well, this pattern hopefully did better than this one. Why is that? Well, this one's got a much bigger size range, maybe that's it. So that's my stance on it. I wouldn't buy it now, but I already owned it, so I decided to go for it. I also heavily modified it, so it doesn't even really feel much like a Sunday cardigan other than the kind of yoke detail. So let's get into it. I made this using Camarose Snefnug, which is a yarn I bought a year ago when knit.co.uk first opened their bricks and mortar shop. Why am I struggling to talk? And they did a big launch discount, so I bought myself some Snefnug. I originally was using this for a design that I still plan to move forward with one day. I never really showed it that much, but I was struggling with the grading of it, and I thought I just don't have the skills for this yet, so I kept all the work I did on it and will hopefully go back to it soon. But I wanted to repurpose the yarn, obviously, because it's black and I wanted a black cardigan. It's actually more of a very dark grey, I'd say. But I held the Snefnug with some Sandnes Garn, Tynn silk mohair in a very black colour. I'm not sure of the exact colour, but it's like the blackest one you can get. And it's the Tynn silk mohair that's got mohair silk and a bit of wool in it as well, so it's a bit thicker and bouncier. And held together, I got quite a chunky gauge, and I used 7mm needles for this cardigan, which is what the pattern recommends. So I chose it as well because I knew it would knit up quickly. I didn't want to be spending too much time on this project, so it was kind of a last minute additional thing, so the gauge was spot on. However, the original pattern had quite a few features that weren't really what I was looking for. The original pattern is quite oversized. It's got a very big chunky collar that almost stands up. It's got very long sleeves with a big thick rib, and I wanted something that was a little bit more elegant, a little bit more refined, a little bit more wedding vibes. So the first modification I did was I just did a single rib neckband. In the original pattern it's folded over, but I just did a single. It's going to be tricky to show you because it's black, obviously, but yeah, trust me, it's a single neckband, just to kind of give that kind of more formal look, less outdoorsy, less jackety. And then for the sleeves, I made them wrist length, which is unusual for me. Normally I would prefer a longer sleeve, but again, we're going for formal. So I did a shorter, smaller cuff on the wrist, and I also did a rapid decrease, although not that rapid because there's not a huge amount of ease in the sleeve. I was hoping for a little bit more ease in the sleeve because the dress I'm wearing underneath has got a poofy sleeve. It's a thin fabric, but it's still poofy, and I tried it on with the dress earlier, and it just, those sleeves do give it a slight 80s vibe. It's almost like there's a shoulder pad in there, but I'm fine with that. I'm not bothered. No one's going to be like, oh, why the hell does she wear that? And if they do, that's her problem. So yeah, I refined the sleeves a little bit. I didn't do any decreases. There are no decreases in the pattern, I don't think. I didn't even look. I just kept going till it was the right length and just did a little bit of decreasing before I hit the cuff. I basically got my sleeve and pinched it to where I wanted it to kind of be, and then counted the stitches that were left over and then decreased it on the final round. And I'm really happy with the sleeves. Yes, I would have liked a little bit more ease, but I did go for a size that was smaller than recommended, and this is another modification I made. There's not very much positive ease in this. It's kind of, I'd probably say I've got maybe 2 inches positive ease, and in the sleeve there's almost no ease on the arm. My arm circumference is quite a bit bigger than what usually goes with the chest circumference. Obviously there's absolutely no relation really, but when it comes to standard sizing, my bicep is technically larger than average, so there is less ease than I think would be if you had average size biceps. But I don't really mind. Again, it kind of sits nicely with the vibe I was going for. The other major change I made is the length, and you can't see it, so I'm just going to shimmy up onto my knees. It is very, 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 very cropped. And it is cropped because the dress that I'm wearing is quite tight around here, and then on my natural waist it kind of comes out. It's not poofy or anything, but it's quite floaty, and I didn't want the cardigan to go past that natural waistline because you end up kind of losing a lot of my shape, and I think it would look weird over the dress. So when I first made it, I actually made it quite a bit too long, and I had to rip back quite a lot of it. So now yes, it feels very, very short, but I think it makes it look jackety. I think it looks more formal, and as I said, I was wearing this with jeans earlier, and with my super high-waisted jeans I think it looks really, really nice. It looks quite preppy, especially with a headband. It gives me Gossip Girl vibes, especially with the buttons. So yeah, I'm pleased with the length. The one thing that I'm not so pleased about when it comes to the body is the fact that we have some pointiness going on, and when it was much longer it was much pointier, but you can still kind of see it comes down in the front a little bit. I'm fine with the back, it sits ever so nicely in the back, but there is a bit of a point here. It's less obvious when I'm kind of wearing it with a trouser because that point kind of sits in the waistband and it's less obvious, but when I'm wearing it over the dress the point is quite prominent. So I've decided I'm just going to pretend that that's a design feature and get over it. I would like to kind of try and deduce why that happened though. Another modification I made is I added short rows to this pattern. There are absolutely no short rows. It's a very old pattern, and yeah, it's got no short rows in it. So I did my short rows after the rib, but before I split the sleeves, just to kind of raise the back neck a little bit, and I'm pleased that I did that because otherwise I think this would have been more up here rather than where it sits quite naturally in the décolletage. But I am now wondering if that has added to the pointiness of the front. The the short rows are before the sleeve split, so it shouldn't have any effect on the body whatsoever. It only affects the bit that's above this split because it's hard to describe why. It just works, and I've done quite a lot of patterns where I put the short rows in the back before the sleeve split, not at the top of the yoke, and it doesn't affect the body at all. The front is not longer. So I would like to know if any of you guys have knit the Sunday cardigan, if you had a similar issue with the front being a bit pointy. Now, it could be because of the additional short rows, but actually looking closely at my garment, when I'd finished it, when it was all lying out, I think the reason I'm getting pointing at the front is I think the row gauge of my button band is longer than the row gauge of the body. Now, you work the ribbed bubble band, button band at the same time. There's no additional button band at all. And you're instructed to knit it tightly, so your rib isn't too big. Now this I think is a pretty common technique, and I use this technique in my Chantilly cardigan. However, that doesn't point at the front, but that is a V-neck. So I mean, my gut is saying that it's because of the row gauge, just because of the way it lies. And I was hoping that when I added the buttons in, it would help counteract that a little bit, but it is still a little bit pointy. So I think if anybody else was making this, or if I was to make it again, if I was advising anyone on it, I would say to work the button band stitches on a smaller DPN needle. So you're working your body on the recommended needle, or whichever needle you use to get the gauge, and then just have the button band stitches either side on an individual DPN and knit those at a smaller gauge. Annoying and faffy for sure, but I think it would solve this problem. So yeah, I'm gonna kind of do my best to get over that problem, and I don't think it will stop me wearing it, but it's just something to keep in mind, I think, if you were ever considering making this pattern, unless it's because of the short rows, so in which case don't do the short rows, which is what the pattern says. So the other tiny tweak I would make to this if I was making it again, and I think again it's a sign of it being quite an old pattern, you can't see it, it's not really a problem, but it annoyed me a little bit, is the very edge stitch of the button bands is knit on one side, purl on the other side. It's just stockinette, and what that leaves is quite a bumpy edge. Now I think if PetiteKnit was writing this pattern now, and if I was writing it, I would have slipped that edge stitch just to keep it nice and smooth. And when I started it, I was like, oh, that's weird, why aren't we slipping the edge stitch to make that smooth edge? And I should have gone with my gut and done that instead. I probably would have added on an extra stitch and slipped it, but I didn't want to muck about with the pattern, she says, then inserting short rows. But I would have gone with my gut. I would have slipped that edge stitch just to make it nice and smooth. However, this yarn is so fluffy. It's a blown yarn with like alpaca and fluff, and just, it's so fuzzy that you can't see it. But if you were using a smoother yarn, I would definitely say to slip that edge stitch, just to make that detail nice and pretty. The buttons, whilst we're here, I got them from Etsy. I can't remember in my head where I got them from, but I will link the shop below. And they are just a lovely kind of sparkly, jewelly situation. I wanted something a bit blingy, I wanted something a bit fun, and I think I achieved that. They are, however, an absolute pain in the bum to get through the buttonhole because they're like spiky. The edge of the button, it's not like a circle, they're like pointy. And yeah, getting it through the buttonhole was such a pain. But to be honest, I don't think I would be wearing this open anyway. I do sometimes like to wear cardigans with just the top button done. I've got another circular yoke cardigan that I love. It's green. It's kind of got a lacy, bobbly vibe. And I wear that with one button open all the time. But in this case, it just really accentuates that kind of pointy front situation. So I'm not going to worry too much about getting these buttons in and out. The buttonholes you add afterwards by kind of stretching open a stitch and sewing around the edges. And I found that really easy. I put it off for ages. I thought it would be such a ball ache to like sit there and sew these buttonholes round. But actually, it took me maybe half an hour maximum. Because there's only 5 of them, because it's very short and cropped. Although in the pattern she says 5 as well, though I'd probably add more. But it was really easy and really quick. I used like 4 strands of my mohair to sew around the edge of my buttonhole, and I just did like a blanket stitch kind of edging type thing. And it was super quick and super easy. And actually, it was much less hassle plotting where my buttonholes were going to go afterwards than it is when you're knitting it. Because if I had put my buttonholes in whilst I was knitting it, I would have been really screwed when I realised that my body was too long and I had to shorten it, because then the placement of my buttonholes would be off. So I would say going forward, if I do a cardigan again with a like a rib button band, not like a double knit where you knit them as you go, I would totally just not bother knitting the buttonholes and then adding them after, using this method. I couldn't find any like videos from PetiteKnit for it, but it is described in the pattern. But honestly, it's just really, really simple and easy, and yeah, I preferred that actually. What I think I'm going to do as well is, because of the kind of longer button band, I keep wanting to say bobble band, button band situation, is I might also add poppers in between my buttons, because I am noticing it, especially when I was wearing my dress, that we do get a little bit of this, even though it's not too small, it's bigger than my bust. Just in general, we kind of get almost like, you can see it further down here, a kind of puckery-ness here in between, and again that takes away from that kind of posh formal vibe for me. So I'm going to put some poppers in. I mean, I could totally just sew it, because I don't ever plan on undoing these buttons. I can get it over my head pretty easily without messing up my hair and stuff, but yeah, I'm going to do that. So there we go. That's my Sunday cardigan. Oh, I feel like I went really, really in depth with that. I've got my vibe back. So whilst we are sticking with the wedding vibes and the wedding outfit, I let you guys know in the last episode that I was planning on also making a bag for the wedding, which was my main kind of wedding-y project, and I did it, and I'm obsessed with it, and I absolutely loved every second of it. My plan was to make the winter clutch by PetiteKnit. We've got 2 PetiteKnit patterns in this episode. I do apologise, even I'm getting a bit sick of just knitting PetiteKnit things now, but it's just, I just can't go wrong with it. We're going to get into that a bit more later actually. But I decided to make the winter clutch by PetiteKnit. This is one of those patterns, when I first saw it, I was like, what? A fluffy mohair bag? A fluffy knitted bag? What? Are you mad? But over time, it's really slowly grown on me. And I went to Unravel in September, and whilst I was there, Knitting and Living had a stall there. And Kimmy had all the accessories, like the frame, the lining, the chain and everything, and I was like, do you know what, I've wanted to make this for so long, I'm just going to get all the, but one of the things that was putting me off was like getting all the hardware for it. So I thought, it's here, I'm just going to buy it, and then when I'm ready to make it, I can. And then shortly afterwards I thought, well, this will be perfect for the wedding, right? I'm going to a knitter's wedding, we need to represent somehow. I wasn't sure if I wanted to make a cardigan or anything, but I was like, no matter what happens, I want to make a bag. And then the yarn I chose to use for it was yarn that I had bought to make myself a slip over, but I quickly realised that I didn't actually want to make a slip over in this colour, that it was a step too far for me. And I didn't have enough for a sweater's quantity, so I thought, well, I might as well break up the amount I've got. I had 4 of each of the yarns, and I'm going to make a bag with it. And lo and behold, it is done. And I'm going to show it to you now. Oh my goodness. It is going to be so difficult to show you this, because my camera absolutely hates this colour. The camera on my phone, my actual camera, it's just impossible to get an accurate representation of this colour, because it just blows out because it's so bright. But here is my winter clutch by PetiteKnit in Knitting for Olive, Merino and Kid Silk Mohair in one of their newest colours, Pink Daisy. And oh my goodness, it's so far out of my comfort zone, you don't even know. I am a neutral girly. I'm all about black, white, grey, beige, green sometimes, as long as it's like a natural green, and then sometimes like red or orange or earthier kind of warmer tones, but kind of bright hot pink is not me at all. However, I feel like this has brought new life to my wardrobe in just this one simple little accessory. I'm gonna try and give you a close-up of it and hope that hope that my camera can handle it. Oh, do you know what, that is really not too bad. Yes, my nails match my bag. That was intentional because I am very, very extra. That my camera actually did quite well there. Well done, camera. So it is made in a slipped garter stitch, it's called, and I absolutely loved working this. Honestly, every moment was a joy, even when I had to start again. I'm going to show you the inside. Oh, it's so satisfying every time I do it. I have the official PetiteKnit lining because I couldn't be bothered to make one, and I've got the little PetiteKnit label as well. I hand sewed this in and I am so pleased with my work. It felt scary the whole time, but it's absolutely perfection. There are a lot of tutorials for this bag on YouTube. They're not in English. I can never remember where PetiteKnit is from, whether it's Denmark or Sweden, I'm never sure. But they're not in English, but they are subtitled in English. But to be honest, I didn't even need to read the subtitles. I just need to watch someone doing it, and yeah, easy peasy. So I'm going to talk about this from the bottom up because that's the way it's worked. I'm going to talk through my process and what went wrong, what went right, etc, etc. So you start with the bottom, which is kind of this section here, and you work it that way, and then you work it that way, which is kind of why we've got this seam in the middle here. And I started on the recommended needle size. I didn't swatch because I thought, well, I'm looking at the bottom of this bag, and that's basically a swatch anyway. So I started on the recommended needles, which are a 3mm needle, and I worked a little bit of it, and I checked it, I measured it, and it felt about right, so I continued on. But by the time I'd finished that whole bottom piece of the bag, I realised that it was too small. I was actually staying in a hotel with my husband for his birthday, and I had to do a quick little like hotel blocking. I popped it in the sink with some of the fancy shampoo and then put it on the towel rail to dry, but it was coming up about 2 centimeters too short in width. Length doesn't really matter so much because I can just keep going until I get the right length or width. It's hard to describe, but either way it wasn't long enough. And obviously you're making something that's going to fit a frame that you have no control over and a lining that you have no control over. So the knitting that you make has to be spot on. The gauge has to be as close as possible. And I actually put off starting this a little bit for a little while because I think I was actually quite nervous about making it. I did a Q&A on my Patreon recently, and one of the questions was, is there a knit that you're intimidated to do, you'd really like to do, but you're like intimidated by it? And my answer to that question was no. But then I kind of realised since then that I was intimidated by this project. The pressure to get the gauge spot on was like a little bit scary, but actually it was good. It was humbling. And when I realised that I was off gauge, I was like, okay, just gonna start again. Like this has to be right whether I like it or not. And actually traditionally for most PetiteKnit patterns I have to go up a needle size anyway. I didn't for this, and maybe I should have done because then I would have had maybe a little bit more ease on the arms like I wanted. Haven't actually checked if I'm on gauge. I did gauge swatch, but I haven't checked the garment because it fits me fine, so it doesn't really matter. But when I did the Moby sweater, I had to go up a needle size, and that's because PetiteKnit is a continental knitter and I'm an English knitter, so naturally I knit a lot tighter. But then also a slipped stitch pattern can also make your work tighter, and I think when I'm slipping a stitch, I slip it with less yarn in the back than when PetiteKnit would, for example. So my gauge was just far too tight, so do you know what? I'd started it, realised it was far too small on the 3mm needle, and then I'd gone up to a 3.5 and finished the bottom, realised it was still too small, so I started again with a 4mm needle. So I actually went up quite a few needle sizes technically. I went up a whole millimetre, which is quite a lot. But then I got just close enough to the gauge that I thought it was okay. I was a little bit short on the width of the bottom bit, but I was like, if I have to, I can block that out. I'm not going to worry too much about that. So I did the bottom piece, and then after you've worked this bottom bit flat, you kind of join in the round and work up. And I thought there was going to be some like fancy shaping and like kind of thing that you had to do to make it fit this frame, but you don't. It's literally just a circle. And I was so surprised by that. and I really enjoyed it. Once I knew I got my gauge right and I'd done the kind of slightly fiddlier bit at the bottom, and you're just working in the round all the way up, it was so nice. It's technically an 8-row repeat, but really it's a 4-row repeat, just slightly adjusted. And I loved it. I really enjoyed working this stitch pattern. I really like slip stitches. I just find them fun. I know a lot of people really hate slipping stitches, but I really enjoyed it. Like, I love doing double knit. I know a lot of people absolutely despise it, but I really enjoy it. I find it really satisfying. And yeah, you are moving your needle back and forth quite a lot in this project, but I don't find that a problem. And yeah, it was just really enjoyable, and I kept going until I got to this point, and then you get to the casing at the end, which is just in stockinette, which is so satisfying after all this texture work. And then you just get to the putting it all together bit, and again, it was much easier than I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be difficult, I thought it was going to be faffy, and I think sewing in the lining was probably the faffiest bit of it, but again, even then, didn't even take that long. I just did it in the evening with the telly on, and it was actually really satisfying watching it come together. And I think one of the reasons I enjoyed this project so much is there was just a lot of new things in there for me, and I don't get that very often anymore. Like, there aren't many things that aren't new to me in this world. Like, I've kind of had a go at everything pretty much now. So it was really nice to try something new and it be a success. It was just a pure dopamine rush. And from start to finish, I made this in 3 days. Now, that was a lot of knitting time. I think I'd probably say, let me think about how many hours. I think whilst we were in the hotel, I probably spent, and I worked on it going to and from the hotel as well, so I'd probably say it was about 6 hours at the hotel, and then the day after probably another 6 hours, and then finishing maybe 2 to 3 hours. So I'd probably say, with contingency, 20 hours on this project, and I just happened to be able to do that within 3 days. But yeah, honestly, I wore this for the first time today on the school run, because why wouldn't you wear a hot pink hand knitted clutch bag on the school run? I was wearing my Eclair jumper with like a kind of checkered blazer and leggings and chunky trainers, and I felt really cool, and I was like, I wonder if this would go. Like, I don't really know what I'm going to do with a bright pink bag. Is it going to go with my wardrobe? And honestly, I thought it looked fantastic. I was so proud of my little school run outfit. I felt really trendy. I felt really like, just felt great, and I just wouldn't have ever thought a pink handbag would make me feel so good. And I really think it's going to bring so much fun and joy to a lot of my outfits, because I do wear neutral things. I've got a really beautiful camel coloured wool coat which I wear quite a lot, and the hot pink against the camel, beautiful. I was a little bit worried that wearing this with a black outfit would give licorice allsort vibes. I don't know if that's a very British thing, but a licorice allsort, like these sweets that are made of licorice and kind of almost like fondant-y sweet stuff, and there's one that's like black and hot pink, like black pink, black pink, black pink, and I was a little bit worried that that's what we'd be giving. But I'm wearing a gold shoe, and I'm not going to do like a pink lipstick, I'm not going to do pink accessories, it's just pink bag and pink nails, and hopefully we won't be giving licorice allsort. But even if we are, then that's the vibe we're going for. Who cares? It's fashion. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be what you like. And if you like it, then it's good. I really learned this about myself in the past few months, like during my mental health journey, like learning to, like, finding fun in fashion again has been so liberating. When I was younger, I used to have so much fun with fashion. I really enjoyed it, and I'd be quite out there in my choices, and I went through loads of different phases, and it was just always such a big source of fun for me. And then that got stripped away, and I got to a point where I would dress to hide myself as much as possible, which is not fun at all. So to be back in that place where I can have fun with fashion again has been so nice. So yeah, there we go. My winter clutch, it's my absolute fave. I know my sister would die for this. She would absolutely love this. Oh, by the way, this used 1 ball of the Merino and 1 ball of the Mohair, almost exactly. This is how much I've got left. This is how much the Merino I've got left, and this is probably going to make its way into a blanket. And this is Merino and Kid Silk held together, and I ripped out from my bottom bit that was too small. I ended up needing a little bit of it, but yeah, absolutely perfect. So if you have like a really special skein of yarn or a couple of balls of something, then it's perfect. I feel like this is going to be part of my wardrobe forever, and my daughter Penelope is absolutely desperate to get her hands on it. She was like, "Mummy, will you make me a pink bag? And Mummy, can I have it?" And I was like, "You can't have this one, darling. Maybe after the wedding you can have a turn, but I want to keep it nice just for now. Please don't ruin it yet." But honestly, it was so quick to make. I think this would be such a fantastic gift knit as well. If you can get hold of the hardware, then what an amazing Christmas present to have, like, to receive this. I don't know anyone who wouldn't be overjoyed to receive this in any colour. And I think if we were doing Christmas presents, then I would probably do that for my sister. Maybe I'll make one for her birthday next year, or maybe I'll just make her one for fun and we can have matching bags. We'll see. Anyway, so right, moving on, I have another finished object to show you, and it's a very, very exciting one because I have just released the pattern for it. Not technically right now, because I'm doing that thing when I'm recording in advance and it feels weird to talk as if I'm in the future, but the day that this podcast goes live, the Stella Quilt cushion will be ready for you to purchase. Obviously, I've shown this quite a lot, and we've got the original sample here, which I made whilst I was working on my sweet shop blanket, and I was very inspired, and I thought, well, we can have a bit more fun with these little garter triangles. I wonder if we can get some quilting vibes going. And this was my kind of tester, and as I made it I was like, oh, cushion cover, my goodness. So this is the original motif, which is, I've been told it's an Ohio star, but I've also been told it's a crystal star. I think it's to do with the orientation of this centre. I think if this was just one, this whole big square was one colour, it's an Ohio star, but because we've kind of got this diamond in the middle, then it's technically a crystal star, I think. But yeah, I think quilting is a whole new world for me, so I'm not going to pretend to know what I'm talking about. So this is the original motif, and then I was sent a picture of a barn, which I've now learnt is from Pennsylvania, I think, and it's a very traditional thing, and they have this motif painted on their barns, and I was so inspired by this picture that was sent to me that I was like, I have to see if this will work for the Stella Quilt cushion. Sorry, it's upside down, and it did, and I'm so pleased with it. This one is made at an Aran weight, and I've used Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool for it in natural white and cinnamon melange. And it's an Aran weight gauge, 5mm needles. And this one is made at a DK weight gauge. And the reason I decided to do 2 gauges is because I thought this would just make such a fun advent project, especially if you have a 12 skein advent calendar. You can work this motif at the DK weight gauge. There are numbers for both motifs in both gauges, so you can make this one in Aran or DK, this one in Aran or DK. And if you go and check out the hashtag on my Instagram, my testers have done such an amazing job of doing so many different combinations, so many different colours. There are boucle versions, there are rainbow versions, there are neutral autumn versions. They've just done such an amazing job. But I thought, because you have 12 different contrast triangles here, you could hold your fingering weight double and use one of your 12 skeins for each triangle, and if you can get the gauge spot on, you could even make 2 pillows, because each triangle uses around 5 grams, depending on how long your tail is, depending on your gauge, depending on your yardage. You should be able to get 2 cushions out of it using your 12 skein advent calendar using this motif. So that's why we got the 2 gauges. This one, I used the leftovers from my Woolly Mammoth Fibre Company advent calendar from last year, plus one or two more of her mini skeins. This one is from a 100 gram skein that I have, and I think this one was just another mini skein. I bought like a mystery bag of 3 mini skeins from her, but they are all either the Hearth sock or the natural sock base, held double to make DK weights, and my main colour is Filcolana Saga held double, which is a lamb's wool, and they go so beautifully together. They've got a really similar feel, really similar gauge, and I'm really pleased because these colours are just so beautiful. I didn't know what I was going to do with them. I did start making socks, but I wasn't really feeling it, and it's just a really beautiful way to display. And quite often I think advent calendars are, you know, designed to be one cohesive thing. I think you might get some that are just random colours, but you often get like a fade or a theme or something, and it's just lovely. This one has got 8 different contrast colours, and I used 16 grams of each. So if you had a 20-gram mini skeins, you could use 8 of them for this and have some left over, or you could use, obviously these are 2 separate triangles, so you could use one colour here, one colour here. In the pattern there's also a colouring in page for each motif, so that you can have a little go, like test out your colours, you know, see what placement you want to do, all that kind of thing. So yeah, I love doing a colouring in page if I can. And then the final kind of feature of this cushion design is the closure. The original one I have here is with a sewn closure. I can't even tell which edge is the sewn closure anymore. It's done with mattress stitch and it's completely invisible, but obviously you can't then get your cushion inside out if you wanted to. You could unpick your mattress stitch, but I mean, I could probably figure it out. But you work the front piece first. There is no seaming involved. It's all modular, just like the Sweet Shop blanket, where the pieces are added on using different techniques, using picking up stitches and German short rows. If you've never done German short rows before, this is a brilliant way to practice it, and I have made a full tutorial video for every single joining method. So if you've never done these techniques before, I've got you covered. I would say it's an intermediate pattern, but if you are a brave beginner who wants a challenge, I would say give it a go, and the videos are there for you to watch me showing you exactly how to do it. So yeah, I'd give it a go if I was a what's the word I'm looking for? Ambitious beginner, maybe. So you work the front piece first and then you work the back piece, and again it's just in plain garter stitch, and it's going to be hard to show you, but it's on the bias. It's not across like this or vertical like this, it's worked diagonally across. And the reason I did this is one, it just kind of made sense, especially when it came to attaching it. It's using a very similar method to one of the ones we do on the front. But also because that fabric is on the bias, it makes a much stronger fabric. If it was across, then after a while it would start to sag and get drooping and just wouldn't have much strength. So by working it diagonally, got a nice strong backing, and it's really it's a nice part of the cushion to work after all the fiddliness of here. It's then like, it's just back and forth and it's lovely. When you get to the widest point, it is a little bit like, oh my goodness, is this ever going to be over? But then you start decreasing again, and all of a sudden it speeds up and you get to the end and it's done. So that's one option. And then the other option, I wanted to give you the ability to get your cushion out if you wanted to. I would say that this is a decorative piece. I wouldn't use it to lean on or put your face on, because you don't want like the oils of your face getting into the cushion cover. That being said, my daughter has claimed this as her own and has been sleeping on it, and that is also a testament to how lovely and soft this 100% British wool yarn is. My daughter sleeps with her face on it and it doesn't irritate her at all. Obviously everyone's different, and Penny has grown up in wool, but yeah, I think that's just a lovely note on the yarn. But this one has the envelope closure. This was definitely a test for me as a designer. I had an initial idea which did not work at all, and I kind of had to really think about this and go through a lot of different kind of iterations of it, but it worked and I'm so pleased with it. It's the garter stitches worked across here, so you kind of get the bias here and the flat across there, and I think it looks lovely. And it has got a I-cord finishing. I think it looks so I think it looks so profesh. I really should do, because I'm a professional. And again, it's all worked modularly. You can work it flat and seam it if you want to, but I show you exactly how to do it, to work it all in one piece. So this can be completely unseamed if you want it to be. Now, in the pattern, there are two kind of ways that you can do this back piece. I have worked it without short rows because my insert is the kind of perfect size. It's a 50 by 50 insert, and I have used a natural feather down filling because for me it just makes the squishiest, coziest pillow, and you can do a chop if you want to. However, if you were using a synthetic insert, they tend to be quite a bit firmer and a bit more solid. And what tends to happen with this is if you've got a really big insert, or maybe your gauge is a bit off and your cushion has come out a bit smaller, your cover has come out smaller, this back piece kind of starts to ride up like this and creates an arch. And that's not much of a problem, I'd say, if you were having it just as a decorative piece, but you don't want it to be getting to a point where we're starting to see the cover. So I have included short rows in the pattern that will fill in this bit. I have tested them, I have checked them. I had to work them the first time I made this cover because it wasn't big enough and it was doing this thing, but I've just not included them in my sample because I didn't really think it needed it. So there we go, that is the Stella Quilt cushion, available now on Ravelry and my website, ready for your advent knitting and also your gift knitting. I'd probably say it's not the quickest knit, but it's a lot quicker than a jumper, but it'll probably take longer than a pair of socks or a hat, if that makes sense. But I also think it's a really, really special gift and really, really enjoyable. And you could definitely get it done between now and Christmas, I think. So moving on, I'm going to stick with this kind of theme for now. Oh, also there will be a discount code. There's always a launch discount code. This is being launched on a Friday, so the code will finish on Sunday evening, midnight on Sunday, and you can get 10% off the Stella Quilt cushion by using the code, what should we call it? Using the code Stella Quilt. Using the code Stella Quilt. Oh, but ding, put it here and I'll put it in the description box below. But you get 10% off on Ravelry, and if you are one of my patrons, then you will get a bigger discount. So if you are not a patron yet and you want a slightly chunkier discount off this pattern, and you also get a discount code for all my other patterns when you join on either tier, I've got a lower tier and a higher tier, you'll get a bigger discount if you want it. But sticking with this, I have got, I'd say it's technically a whip, but this is going to be such a long-term whip that I kind of feel like it doesn't count, even though it does count. When I started sharing this design, I was inundated. Is there going to be a blanket? Can I make a blanket out of this? I really want to make it as a blanket. So of course, I have written a blanket pattern. I actually finished the pattern yesterday. I put the final kind of diagram image in it, and what I thought was going to be, it'd be really quick and easy to turn this into a blanket, surely actually turned out to be a lot of work, and it's probably one of the most in-depth patterns that I've ever written. There are schematics, there are diagrams, it's a chunky old pattern, but it is going to enable you to make your very own, completely unique and personal heirloom blanket, and I'm so proud of it. I'm really excited to get my sample going, and I kind of have already started my sample a little bit, but what I wanted to do was make the blanket pattern so that you could use up those single 100-gram skeins of either DK or fingering weight yarn in one. You know, when you're like, oh, I love that, I'm just gonna get one skein of it, you don't know what to do with it and it sits in your stash for ages. Well, I got you covered. So I have written it so that if you work this motif like this, you will use just under 100 grams of either fingering weight how double or DK for your contrast colour. So one of these motifs uses 100 grams of contrast colour and then your main colour on top of that. So you could have one of these motifs in your blanket in that one solid colour to really display it and show it and make a point of it, and hopefully not have very much of it left over. If you did have a little bit of it left over, you could use it in a matching cushion or in the sweet shop blanket or in a pair of socks or whatever. And then obviously with this version of the motif, you can just have as much fun as you like. And I'm going to show you some of the fun I've been having. So my plan for my sample is each motif is going to be a different colour. It's going to be slightly kind of rainbow vibes. I'm going to have a row of like reddy pink, row of orange, row of yellow, row of green, row of blue. So it's almost like a rainbow situation, but each motif is going to be different. There are going to be some that are solid, some that are going to be like this, which is technically motif number 2, this one, where I've used different hand-dyed yarns for each kind of section, but they are all blue. They're all different types of blue. And actually this is some knitting for Olive that I had left over that I wasn't sure what to do with. And this was leftovers from a yarn that my friend got me as a present, which I made a pair of socks with. So when I see this, I'm like, reminds me of Anna, which is really nice, and it's another way to enjoy the yarn. But yeah, it's using up those little scrappy leftovers. So this is going to be blue, and then I'm going to have a solid one in like a solid blue, and then I'm probably going to do another one. I think I have planned this all out like this, where every individual one is a different type of blue, and it's just going to be so much fun. And I've also kind of started the pinky ready kind of one. Again, this is going to be this motif, but every single one is going to be different. So rather than having the 8 different colours, there's going to be 16 different colours. And that's great because I had quite a lot of yarn left over where I only had little bits of it, so I could use it all up. Whereas with the blue, I had quite a lot of blue yarn that I hadn't used in my sweet shop blanket, so I had enough to do the bigger motif. So the blanket pattern will be coming as soon as I finished my sample, really. My sample knitter is going to help me, and she's going to do a couple of motifs for me. Now for the blanket, there are 2 options. You can either make each individual motif like this and then seam them all together, which is what I'm going to do, because that way I can make all my motifs, lay them out and decide what order I want them in, and then seam them all together. It also makes it really, really portable, because you can just work on one motif. You haven't got a huge blanket project in front of you, and you can take it with you in the car or wherever it is you go, into the pub or whatever, and then you can either add them all together at the end or seam them together as you go. So you then also kind of get that, you could have it on your lap maybe if you wanted to whilst you're working on it, or you can work it completely contiguously. So there are also instructions. You would work your first motif, and then it shows you how to add on your next motif and add on the one above and add the one in the corner. So you can do it however you like, either seamed or not seamed. I got you covered. So it's just gonna take me some time to make this sample. In all honesty, I've got quite a few test knitters lined up. There won't be a public test call for this one. I've had lots of people message me saying they'd like to give it a go, and I said yeah, okay, and just kind of built them up over some time. And I've got enough testers now, and those that are testing won't have to finish the whole blanket, because I think that's unrealistic. I just need them to finish a motif or 2, and yeah, as soon as it's done, it will be ready for you. But it's going to be 2024, I think. I'm going to work on it a lot over Christmas, I think. I've got 2 yarn advent calendars coming. One is a fade, well, that has already arrived, the other one's arriving this week. One is a fade, and I'd like to keep that as one project, and the other is like a fun neon crazy coloured one. And if I open one that I think would work in my blanket, I'm going to put it in my blanket and then just kind of add those to my mini skein collection, because I'm a person who has a mini skein collection now. Yay! So that's the Stella collection, and yeah, I really hope you enjoy making them, and I can't wait to see them. So I have got one more project to show you, and it is both finished object and whip and Christmas project and pattern release kind of soon, and just my little project of joy. It was kind of planned. I planned to do this, but I didn't plan for it to be a pattern. But it is. And if you've been on my Instagram, you will know what I'm talking about, because I've been obsessed with it and I've kind of flooded my Instagram with it, and you're probably sick of me going on about it, but I do have valuable information for you when it comes to release and all that kind of thing. So 1 second, need a drink. So, for the past few years, my mum has made me and my sister advent bags. And what that means is, on the 1st of December, she arrives at our house with a bag that she handmade, filled with Christmassy things. Not to like open as an advent every single day. So I don't really know why we call it an advent bag. Probably just because it's given on the 1st of December, even though I know that's technically not what Advent is. That's like the 4 Sundays before. But anyway, we call it the Advent bag. And it's got things like candles and a bottle of wine and Christmassy things just to kind of get you in the mood for Christmas. And she started it during lockdown when obviously we found out we weren't going to be with each other, and it was such a difficult time, and she just wanted to bring a little bit of joy to our lives, and it was so wonderful, and it's just continued. And last year, me and my sister surprised my mum with an advent bag of her own. We joined forces. My sister made the bag. I basically went crazy and got all the stuff to put in it and had a lot of fun doing it. And this year we decided that instead of my mum, you know, doing 2 and me and my sister only having to do half a one, we kind of Secret Santed it. But you can't Secret Santa with 3 people because you can figure out who's got you based on who you've got. But we drew names out of a hat, and we're making one for each other. So this year I'm making one for my sister's making one for my mum, and my mum's making one for me, and then next year we'll switch. So every year you'll make one for the opposite person. And I've had so much fun with it. Mine is already finished. There's one more thing that I'd quite like to do for it, but only if I've got time. But I knew I wasn't going to hand make the bag itself just because I didn't have the skills or the time, and I couldn't really find a pattern I wanted. But I did very much want to do something handmade within it if I could. And I decided that I was going to make a hot water bottle cover for my sister, and that I still had loads of teeny little scraps left over from this, and I loved this kind of colour vibe, and I had lots of my main colour left, and I thought this is a kind of colour that I think my sister would love, and I really had a hankering for colour work, so I thought I'm just going to make a colour work hot water bottle cover. So I did. And I'm going to show you is this the very first one? No, this is the very first one. So this is the first one that I made, and this was made completely kind of randomly without a lot of thought, but ended up turning into something I absolutely love. So this is the first iteration of what is called the Maxine hot water bottle cover. I called it that because that's my sister's name and it's for her, so I thought it was about time I named a pattern after her. And this originally started as a Maker hot water bottle cover, which is a free pattern on Ravelry, and I would highly recommend. It's a fantastic pattern. It's really well written. You can work it in and round, you can work it flat, and it's free. It's just a basic stockinette pattern. So it started off like this, but I quickly realised that if I wanted to do the colour work part of it, I was going to have to change it because the stitch count wasn't right, the gauge wasn't right. If I wanted to do these motifs, again with the motifs, which I'm now realising are like little miniature Stella kind of stars, I basically had to kind of start from scratch. I will say, if you wanted to kind of do your own version of this, then get the free Maker pattern and insert your favourite colourwork pattern. It's like really, really easy. One of my testers actually did that with the stitch pattern from the Kerr sweater by Rebecca Clow of the of the Crayon Knitting Podcast, and it looks really, really good. So even though obviously I want people to go and buy my pattern, this was never like meant to be like a big like pattern release thing. This was just a last minute project that I did and loads of people loved, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to write my version of my pattern up. And it didn't take very long to write, and it went straight into test. And this isn't about selling lots of patterns. This was just so much fun. So if you don't want to buy my pattern and you'd rather have a free pattern and insert your own colour work, do it, honestly. Or you can buy my pattern if you want and insert your own colour work, but I do definitely recommend the Maker. And my colour work was originally inspired by the Strange Brew library as well from Tynn Knits. It's a pattern I talk about all the time. It's got an excellent colour work pattern, but all of these are traditional Fair Isle motifs that you could find in a book or just free on the internet, and I ended up adjusting them quite a lot to work for my kind of pattern. So that's how it started. That's where it came from. And after I made this first one, I thought, right, I want to do this, but there are a lot of things about this original version that I wanted to change if I was going to turn it into a pattern. So the first thing is how many colours I used. This has about 7 or 8 different colours in it. It's got sometimes where the colour is only used once for like a single row. It's also not symmetrical. I know it's very hard to tell, but this is slightly different to this, and this section here has some rows where there are 3 colours in it. It's such a ball ache to do 3 colours, and I thought if I'm gonna make this into my own pattern, I want it to be quick, easy, fun, satisfying. So I stripped it down to 5 colours, well 5 contrast colours, 1 main colour, and I got rid of all the 3 rows and I made it symmetrical, and we ended up with this. And you can see that they give the same kind of vibe, but I think this one is just a little bit more refined and definitely easier to work. So all the DPD mans here, bear with. Okay, we're back. I took the opportunity to change my battery as well. So yes, here we are. This is what it turned into. It's different gauge, different stitch count, different chart, but yeah, pretty much the same thing. But yeah, I'm really pleased. I'm so pleased with how it turned out. We went straight into the test for this before I'd even finished this sample, which was a bit of a risk, but I'm glad I did. And the versions, I know I say this every time, but the versions my testers have come up with are so incredibly fun. There are like neutral ones with pops of colour. There's a completely blue one. Kelly has just done one that's like Barbie gingerbread vibes. It's like a warm brown main colour with like pinks in the, oh, it's so good, and oh, they're just so much fun. And I was really surprised at how quickly they all got through. Well, they got through them. Not everyone's finished yet, but a lot of people have already finished and are making another one. It was just a 2-week test knit, but I'm at the point where I think I'm pretty much ready to go, and I'm probably going to write the pattern this afternoon, well, make the final PDF this afternoon. I also wanted to quickly show you the reason this hasn't got a hot water bottle in it is because quite a lot of people have said, but how do you get the hot water bottle in? How do you get this into this? And honestly, I wasn't sure at first either, but then I was like, oh, hang on a minute. You just fold it. It's rubber. And I thought I'd give you a little showing. Well, I mean, I can't exactly show you, but the neck itself is actually like really quite stretchy, and it's also really important that when you're binding off, you're using a stretchy bind off. I use a tubular bind off because I really enjoy doing it. I love the way it looks and it's super stretchy, but you could use any kind of bind off of your choice. And as you can see, it's going through the neck hole all folded up. Going to keep going. I'm going to be keeping this sample for myself. My sister's getting the original one, and I'm going to have this one just because I'm going to need it, I think, in the future for any future kind of posts or photos or sharing or whatever. And there we go. She's inside, and I just love how it looks like a little miniature jumper. Like, there's just something about the kind of turtleneck situation. I love it. I'm so proud of it. So there you go, that's the Maxine hot water bottle cover, 6 colour version. I also decided just to kind of make sure that the pattern was as jam-packed as possible and you could get lots of different kind of versions out of it as you could and get different kind of vibes and styles, not just the one I've shown you. I did a 3 colour version as well. And again, I made the chart and it went into test before I'd even kind of made the 3 colour version myself, and I watched some of my testers do it and I absolutely loved it. So my final whip, I guess, that I'm showing you, and this is the one that's going to be finished today, is my 3rd Maxine hot water bottle cover. But this is the 3 colour version, and it is quite possibly the most festive thing I've ever made in my life. Ding dong, merrily on high. I'm so lame. I just love Christmas. Anyway, here we go. This is the 3 colour version. So it's exactly the same, well, do you know what? It's not exactly the same. There is a slight change in some of the areas that didn't quite work for the 3 colours. For example, here we have like a solid line all the way through, and here we have little dots because it just didn't really work. So I adjusted it slightly. But what I really like about the 3 colour version is the snowflake motifs. I really pop in this one, and I'm just, oh, I just love it. Again, it's just Christmas jumper vibes, am I right? For this one, by the way, this is exactly the same yarn as this. So my main colour is Filcolana, Saga held double, and all of these guys are different. Well, which one's the original one? This is the original one, and it is all Woolly Mammoth Fibre Company mini skeins from my advent and from other things. However, this one I didn't have enough of from my leftovers for some of the colours, so I introduced some John Arbon Exmoor socks. So the bright green, the pink and the peach, well, so no, the green and the pink are John Arbon Exmoor sock held double, and the peach is an old mini skein of the old Knit by Numbers DK. So most of this is fingering weight held double, but this one is DK, so you really can mix and match with your scraps. And I mean, you don't even need to do 5 colours. You could do a different colour for each section and just go mad with it. It's just so much fun. But this one is all Filcolana Saga, and I did have to break my yarn ban and buy yarn for this, but I'm comfortable with that. And I have got enough to make another one if I wanted to, which I might do. I kind of want to make one of these for my dad. In fact, I might give this one to my dad for Christmas because he does love Fair Isle. I'm not sure if these are his colours necessarily. If I was making one for him, I'd probably go like greys, but also it's so fun and festive. And honestly, I can make these in less than 2 days. I can make them in 24 hours. I think if I cast on like 9 o'clock in the morning and knit until midnight, I could get it done. I wouldn't recommend that because especially Fair Isle knitting, it's tough on your hands. So you need to have that break. I basically did all the colour work yesterday in the day, and then I moved on to the net at night, and I got to about 7, 8 o'clock in the evening and my hands were really tired. So I took a little break. So I wouldn't suggest knitting one in one day, but you could. Or over a weekend or over a couple of evenings. So yeah, I'm not sure who's gonna have this, either me or somebody else. It would be good to have another Christmas present in the bag. But for this one, I've gone for a 2x2 cuff. The stitch count means you can do either 1x1 or 2x2, and I just think, you know, it really pulls in those Christmas jumper vibes. So that's the 3 colour version, and it's so lovely. And I'm also really proud of my colour work tension. I've really gotten better at it using this project. My first one I knit up so excitedly and so quickly, the tension was all over the place, but it blocks out absolutely fine. And I think you can see like my unblocked colourwork tension versus my blocked colourwork tension. They're pretty similar, right? I'm obsessed. Love it. Can't wait to finish this and make another one. So that brings us to the end of my projects, and I feel like I've been talking for a long time. I was worried I wouldn't have enough to show you in this episode, but turns out I did. So, oh, one more thing, by the way, the pattern for the Maxine hot water bottle cover will be coming out as soon as possible, I promise. The latest it will be out will be, I think, the 2nd of December, absolute latest. I'd like to get it out on the 1st, but that is the first day of Vlogmas. It's also Advent bag swap day, so I'll be with my mum and my sister all day, and there's just a lot going on that day, so I don't know if I'll be able to fit in a pattern release as well, but I'll try. But honestly, at the rate my test knitters are going, it'll hopefully be before that even. It just kind of depends when I've got time. I also don't want to be like releasing too many patterns too close together. I want to give this a moment to shine before we move on to the next one. But yeah, it will be really soon. More than enough time to make like 3 of them before Christmas. So yeah. Yay! Who am I? I can't believe. Last minute pattern release. November has been, here we go, we're going straight into the nitty chat now. November has been such a busy month for me. It has been such a busy work month, and I have loved it. Honestly, for someone who was about to give up not even 5 months ago, I'm really shocked to be here, to be working really hard and really enjoying working hard. And even the boring admin tasks, like I drop the kids off at school now, I get home and I open my laptop and I sit down and I get the emails done and I'm on top of my accounting and I'm planning ahead. I've just agreed a collaboration for autumn next year, and it's like I feel like a real person. I remember back when I first started releasing patterns, I couldn't call myself a knitwear designer. I felt like a fraud. I felt like an imposter. I didn't feel like I could say it. And I think I even said at the time, I don't think I'll feel like a knitwear designer until I do my first tax return. Well, I definitely feel that now. And the past month particularly, it's fully felt like my job. That has also come with quite a bit of work on my mindset around it with my therapist. I've always had a very difficult relationship with work. As someone who is neurodivergent, it's been a constant battle in my life. And actually with some really simple mindset changes, it's had a huge effect on me. I can now finally appreciate what an honour it is. An honour? How lucky I am, what a privilege it is to do what I do for a job and it be sustainable enough for me to do it as a job and not have to go back into an office or a restaurant or something that I absolutely hate doing. Yeah, admin sucks and it's boring as hell, but I get to do that sat on my sofa in my pyjamas with a cup of coffee and a Christmas movie on the telly. Like, come on. I'm really, really grateful for the situation I'm in now, and I've really felt that this November. Been working really, really hard and getting lots of things done, and I'm doing a last minute hot water bottle release because I wasn't overwhelmed by the amount of work that it would need, and I enjoyed it. So yeah, smugness over, I'm feeling really good. But I'm gonna have to say it, so excited for Vlogmas. It's just around the corner. Honestly, I've not let myself really start to feel completely festive yet, just because I've still got a lot of things that I need to tick off before I feel I can be really immerse myself in Christmas. Once the 2 pattern releases are done, I think I'll be able to really get in the mood for it. I do have another Patreon video I need to film before Vlogmas, and yeah, I'm just very, very ready for the 1st of December. Vlogmas this year I think is going to be different, hopefully very different to 2022, because even though it was all happy and festive on the outside, it wasn't that on the inside, and it was a turning point for me for sure. 2021 was that's where I want to get back to how I felt Vlogmas 2021. There was a lot less anxiety, there was a lot less internal pressure. I was just having fun, and I'm so excited to get back to that point again. I have no pattern releases in December other than potentially the hot water bottle, but work-wise it's going to be a really quiet month. The blanket test will have started by then, but again, that's going to be long-term thing, so I'm not going to be doing major work things. And I did originally think, well, I'm going to completely clear my diary so I don't have any work to do in December, but I'm getting closer and there are things I want to do. I do kind of want to get the ball rolling on some old garment patterns again, and that's weird for me to think of. So I think there will be designing in December, but it's mainly going to be Vlogmas and having some quiet time, and my husband has got quite a lot of time off in December, which I'm really looking forward to, and just enjoying the time and being grateful for the time and appreciating my favourite month of the year and the things I get to do. Okay, one final thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that after that water bottle cover I'm going to have no whips, because blankets don't count as whips for sure. I do have a sock whip, but again, it doesn't really feel like it counts. I just knit on that when I feel like it. I've got one sock finished. It's like that neon confetti type vibe, and I'm probably not going to go back to those until the new year because I have a Christmas sock that I want to do. That will be cast on in December. It's a Christmas sock skein thing. It's like gingerbread. I'm so excited. So that will be one of my projects in December. I also still have a few gift knits I want to do, but not that many, and only 2 that I need to do, like I've committed to doing, but they're really, really quick projects. They're just accessories. But other than that, I don't have like a main December project. The past 2 years, it's been my husband's Christmas present. It's been a jumper. It was just 2021 it was fine because I had enough time to do it and I was enjoying the project. Last year was an absolute travesty. Didn't finish it, hated every second of it, ruined Christmas. No, it didn't ruin Christmas, but it was a big part of why I wasn't enjoying my December, let's be honest. So there is no garment gifting this year, and I would like to make myself a Christmas garment, something that I will wear hopefully on Christmas Day, but if I don't finish it in time, it's not the end of the world. But I don't know what that is gonna be. I know that I don't want it to be a PetiteKnit pattern, that's for sure. I can't decide yet whether or not I want to design something or not. I kind of want to do somebody else's pattern, but I just don't know what I want to do. So this is where I really want your help, and I really appreciate it if you've made it to the end of this video and are here to offer your help if you can. But I'm going to give you a vibe, and if a pattern comes to mind, then I'd love it if you let me know below in the description box. So what I want is, I think I know I want something white and fluffy. That's kind of where I'm starting with. I have some Knitting for Olive heavy merino in stash, and I think I would buy some mohair to go with it. When I'm at the knitty weekend wedding thing, we are probably going to go to a yarn shop, so if I can buy some matching fluff for it there, I will. But I'm thinking white and fluffy, but other than that, I'm completely open to it. Part of me fancies cables, part of me fancies a cardigan, part of me fancies a jumper. I know that I want something kind of with similar ease to this because I have a very clear vision of how I want to wear this jumper. Bear with. I bought myself a pair of silver sparkly trousers. Got them from Sainsbury's on a complete whim. I love them, they're really comfy, they fit me beautifully, and Penelope has got a matching dress. That's right. So I'm going to be wearing these for my Christmas Eve party that I'm hosting this year, and I'll probably wear them on Christmas Day unless I spill something down them. But I've got a black Christmas jumper to wear with it on Christmas Eve. It says Merry on it, but for Christmas Day I'd really like to wear something handmade, and I'm thinking white and fluffy and kind of a bit more tailored will work really well with these floaty, shiny, amazing trousers. And that's kind of it really. Like I said, I'm not averse to cables, not averse to texture. It could be completely plain, maybe even something slightly lacy, I'm not too sure. But yeah, jumper, maybe even like a tee, like a long short sleeve, not like a short sleeve like this kind of length before the elbow kind of vibe. I really don't know. So if you've seen a pattern recently, it will need to be size inclusive. Let me know, please do, in the comments, because I'm really, really struggling and I kind of can't be asked to look through Ravelry, but I will do if I have to. So that is my plea to you today at the end of this probably very, very long episode. But with that, I'm going to round it up because this needs to be edited and I'm running out of time. And I'm going to say thank you so much for joining me. Thank you in advance if you get yourself a copy of the Stella Quilt cushion. If you do, please don't forget to tag me in your progress and show me on Instagram. It's one of my favourite parts of being a knitwear designer, is seeing other people make my patterns and their versions of it, because I can only ever really imagine things in the way that I make them, in the colours that I make them. So to see other people's interpretations is just my most favourite thing in the world. I love it, especially if you're gifting any of my designs this year. I would really, really, really love to see it. So yeah, I'm going to round it off there. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in December for, one more time, Vlogmas. I hope you're all doing well, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye bye.